I ever wanted was to help you. Do you remember, Padre Linda? I kept you sober. I made sure you got custody of your daughter even after the arrests, your record. But because of me, you put all of that in the past. I made you better because I love you.
The Netflix series You followed the serial killing escapades and romantic relationships of Joe Nuttass Goldberg. So far, we've analyzed 3 of his major relationships: Guinevere Beck, Love Quinn, and Bronte's goofy ass. But I skipped Kate because most of her relationship with Joe occurred in nonsensical trash-ass season 4, and I just couldn't bear to put myself through that again. And I'd skipped Marienne because I know how much the streets love Marienne, and y'all might not be ready for what I have to say. And don't get me wrong, put your pitchforks down. I recognize why Marienne is goated and loved by the fan base. Marienne is a woman who battled and survived addiction, and she's one of the only women to date Joe and live to tell a tale about it, and she delivers some of the most powerful monologues and performances in the entire show. Marienne Bellamy is a testament to strength and resilience in so many ways, and we will give our girl her flowers. But you know what Marienne also was? A bird bitch. I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, don't blame me, Aaron. I said what I said. Bird bitch. Y'all don't want to hear the truth, but that's the truth. Beck was a trifling bitch, Love was a nut bitch, Kate was a self-righteous bitch, Bronte was an idiot bitch of the highest order, and by golly gee, Marienne was a bird bitch who knew better. I was rewatching season 3 recently and I found myself re-annoyed at the amount of bird bitchery we let Marienne get away with because we think we love Marienne. Emphasis on think, because hear me and hear me good, we don't love Marienne the character. We love Tati Gabrielle, and Tati Gabrielle put her back into presenting Marienne as a beautiful, poised, sensible, artistic, resilient woman who loved her daughter more than anything. So when you combine her performance with the fact that by the time Joe had her ass in the cage in season 4, she finally had her wits about her and she started giving them fire-ass monologues, we end up thinking we with Marienne the long way. But I am here to assure you that if another person had played Marienne and chosen to play her differently, we would have hated that bitch. If we applied the same facts and circumstances of Marienne to a character that looked and acted like Bronte or even Beck, y'all would have been calling her every kind of home-wrecking, crackhead, deadbeat mother, and I know y'all would, because y'all called Beck worse for less. And I'm not saying I don't like Marienne. I with my girl the long way. She is my black queen who survived. What I'm saying is that by the series end, we end up liking Marienne so much due mostly to Tati Gabrielle's performance that the character Marienne was spared a lot of the harsh criticism her counterparts Candace, Beck, Love, Kate, and Bronte got. So, without further ado, this is the downfall of Marienne Bellamy. Roll the theme song, Aaron.
Black independent, strongest in women. It's Olay, it's Olay, it's Olay, it's Olay now. I know that I'm worth it, so make sure to listen. It's Olay, it's Olay, it's Olay, it's Olay.
Marienne is a gal I could not stand in season 3, came around to in season 4, and loved by season 5. And this is why. We're introduced to Marienne in season 3 when a newly married Joe and Love and their newborn Henry have just moved to Madre Linda. Joe starts frequenting the local library that Marienne manages. Initially, he'd only been going to the library so he could stalk his neighbor Natalie, with his newborn baby strapped to his chest, mind you. Anyway, but he only was going there to stalk Natalie, whom he just commenced an affair with before Love promptly beheaded up. When I say Marienne knew better, y'all need to understand the magnitude in which I mean Marienne knew better. On the first episode, when we first meet Marienne meeting Joe, it's at the library where Marienne knows that he is following Natalie. She knows that this is a married man with his baby strapped to his chest following this woman in the library. And she makes it clear she knows when she tells him, oh, Natalie left a book for you. So this is a woman who knows. She knows Joe wasn't no good from the day she meet him.
Oh, that's okay. Shh.
So are you gonna chase after her, or could I maybe help you with something? And you can take that home with you. Natalie picked it up for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe starts frequenting the library before deciding he wanted to work there full time. Now, Here's why I decided very quickly that Marianne Bellamy was not my type of bitch. And no amount of Tati Gabrielle charm was gonna blind me to the fact that my girl was full of shit. When Marianne first meets Joe, all she has is venom for him and regularly chastises him for being the privileged white man that he is.
I have to say, I'm still very unclear as to why you decided to volunteer here. Unless you're one of those parents trying to pad a non-existent community service resume to get his kid into one of the top schools. And they say white woman syndrome is America's favorite pastime next to porn. When white women receive a disproportionately high level of public attention, a very clear message is being sent. White ladies deserve to be rescued. The rest of us can fend for ourselves.
Agreed, obviously.
I'm not sure why you're saying obviously when you didn't even know about the phenomenon until right now.
And I don't disagree with anything Marianne's saying, mind you. My problem is that Marianne only talking to hear herself speak. Just a performative virtue signaler. Because she talking all this shit about these white men. Because never mind that her ex is exactly said archetype of man she's slandering all day. Because that would make sense that he would be the reason she feels the way she does about these white men. But despite talking all this shit to Joe and knowing this man is newly married with a newborn baby, just a couple of prolonged glances and book binding, and she ready to not only start having an affair with this man, but be creased up in his wife's face, volunteering lies like this.
I'm sorry, you must be Love. I'm Marianne. Joe's told me so much about you.
You're Joe's boss.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great to meet
You as well. He's probably told you how much of a taskmaster I am.
No, I wouldn't say that.
It's true, I do have exacting standards, which is probably a euphemism for being a bossy pain in the ass.
No, he really loves working here,
Good.
even if there's late shifts.
Yeah, I mean, he's a gem. He never complains when I ask him to stay in lockup. And I'm seeing someone. We're in that hangout as much as possible. Okay, so Joe's been picking up my slack.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
I hate a bitch like this. Not only are you smiling up in this woman's face knowing you with a man and volunteering her lies she didn't even ask you for, but the lies you're telling are ones that are deliberately meant to not only trick her into never suspecting you as his mistress, but the lies you're telling are meant to make her think she has this exceptionally good husband. Whole time her husband is a piece of shit cheating with you. I want y'all to remember how we was kicking Beck's back in for how Joe was cheating on Karen Minty with Beck all willy-nilly, and Beck had the nerve to be all in Karen Minty face. Y'all remember that? We had to defend Guinevere Beck's character and right not to be killed by a serial killer for standard issue boyfriend-girlfriend cheating. Marianne is consciously signing up to be a mistress to a man with a new wife and a new baby that she's met. But we're supposed to believe poor Marianne is just this kind mother who only cares about her daughter more than anything else. But let's revisit the facts, shall we? Marianne lost custody of her child, not just because she did drugs, as she and Joe would like to make it seem, but because she was high out of her mind while driving around with her child in the back seat. Now, her ex also did drugs, and still drugs, and he was in the car. But Marianne was the one driving the car. I can't believe Marianne got me out here defending the courts and the white man, but look at here. The courts have to decide which parent has primary custody. So if you're the court, and both parents are drug addicts who got high in front of their child, but only one parent was driving the car, and the parent who was driving the car high is also the less financially stable of the two parents, the one with the lesser career, and the one that has no family or support system around to assist them. Who do you give the child to? Marianne?
Wrong answer, forehead.
Of course Ryan got the kid. That's the part Marianne, Joe, and company didn't want to acknowledge. Ryan has his shit more together than Marianne, period. Now, Marianne would argue that the reason his shit is more together is the result of white privilege, and I won't dispute that. That's for sure a factor. Her ex is a conventionally attractive white man who is also a successful TV reporter with big money and a nice home and a mom who helps him with the kid, whereas she works at the library making shillings and appears to struggle more with her addiction than he does. So yeah, he gets primary physical custody of the kid. And I'm not gonna hold y'all. Nothing about how Marianne was giving it up in season 3 would have had me running up in the court to tell the judge to choose her. I'm sorry. Shoot me with your big gun. But listen, let's think about it. Marianne and her ex Ryan are engaged in a heated custody battle of their kid, where she knows he is willing to do anything to destroy her in court and undermine her ability to parent. Now, would it make sense for someone whose sole focus is to regain custody of their child by demonstrating to the court that they are a responsible parent, to voluntarily choose to start the married man at her job and helping him neglect his own child and household? Actually, I don't even gotta go that far to prove my point. Let me posit something simpler to y'all. What does it tell y'all about Marianne and how she's lived her life? And how the people who actually know her really think of her and her mothering? That at the custody hearing, where Marianne needs people to be character witnesses, to testify to her character and what kind of mother she is, the only people she can ask are the two guys who work at the library with her. One of which is Joe, a man who's been volunteering at the library for all of a few months. That's a red flag. You lost custody of your child because you was driving around high as with her in the back seat. And all you've got for the court is some volunteering at your workplace that you barely know? I can imagine how Joe's testimony went. Marianne is an absolutely amazing mother. How long have you known Marianne? Well, I haven't known her very long, but how long, Mr. Goldberg? Well, just a few months, but I'd have stronger character witnesses if I lost custody of my cat. If you gotta ask the married man flirting with you on the job to be a character witness to try to get custody of your child, I know that the people around you don't think highly of you. Y'all gonna wanna shoot me with your big gun when I say this, but Marianne's ex absolutely deserved full custody.
Yup.
Something everyone needs to always keep in mind is that Joe, serial killer Joe, narrates the show. We are seeing things through the lens that best justifies what Joe wants to do. So when Joe wants to be with a woman, he gives her the best edit alive. And he always gives the ex of the woman he wants the worst edit, which is why Beck was a saint to him and Benji was the devil. Similarly, Marianne is a saint to Joe and her ex Ryan is the devil. Think about it. Who's to say Benji ever actually gave Joe that video he proven he killed a guy? How do we know that's not something Joe's subconscious didn't create to justify him doing what he was gonna do the moment he perceived Benji as an obstacle to getting with Beck? That always made more sense to me, because why would Joe really need to kill Benji if he truly had that blackmail over him and he knew Benji ain't even want Beck? Similarly, who's to say Ryan was not a father who simply didn't want his irresponsible ex from getting custody of their child? The same way I'm not necessarily convinced that Benji killed a fraternity kid shit was real, I'm not convinced Ryan is who Joe was telling us he was. And I'm not convinced Joe was not manipulating events to have Marianne believe Ryan was doing things he wasn't. Think about it. Joe is the only person Marianne tells about the fellowship thing she's interviewing for. Actually, scratch that. It isn't even that he's the only one she tells. He's the only one who knows, and he's the only one who knows because Joe is the one who applied for the thing for Marianne without even asking her. But when Marianne's nudes are mysteriously sent to the people preventing her from getting the opportunity, Marianne assumes that Ryan must have somehow found out about the job and sent the nudes, because she doesn't realize who she assumes is the helpful at the library is really a serial killer preying on her and manufacturing opportunities to swoop in and be there for her. So she assumes it's Ryan. And when she tells Joe, then we see a flashback and hear nut-ass Joe narration claiming to have broken into Ryan's home and seeing the nudes of Marianne, but leaving them behind.
I don't believe you.
Joe wanted us to believe that he was kicking himself for not taking those nudes and preventing Ryan from sending them to the fellowship Marianne was trying to get. But y'all think there's any world where Joe steal a bitch shit to be a weirdo with Goldberg found Marianne's nude at another house and didn't take them? Bitch, please. You remember how he stole them racy pictures of Beck that Peach had? Let me tell y'all what I know actually happened. Joe broke into that man's house and stole the nudes like he does and sent them to the people because it worked doubly to his benefit. He got the brownie points for applying for the thing in the first place and leading her to believe it was Ryan. He gets to break Marianne down even more, so she's more vulnerable and susceptible to his predation and would need him more and hate her ex even more. That's Joe Goldberg shit. Especially seeing as the same Joe wants us to believe Ryan is the immoral bastard doing unethical shit with Marianne's nudes without her consent. Whole time Joe stole Marianne's nudes from Ryan that she voluntarily gave Ryan so that he could then masturbate to those nudes without her consent, causing him to not even be able to get it up for his own wife when she decided to surprise him with head. I think we have ample reason to question the narrative Joe was feeding to us about both Marianne and Ryan. And we also have every reason to believe Joe was both lying to us as the audience and manipulating events to lead Marianne to the wrong conclusions about Ryan. Think about it. Joe was married to Love, who had just had their child and was being a good, responsible mother, and he didn't give a But he at the library staring longingly at a woman he knows the state took custody of her child from because she was endangering her child. Talking about only a mother could rub that book like this.
The way you handle those books. The care. Only a mother. Oh, there. Yeah. Okay. Stop.
Nigga, what?
That alone was enough for me to know that Joe is doing nimble gymnastics to spin everything in the light most favorable to Marianne. And I simply do not trust what he's telling us about Ryan or what he's claiming Marianne's telling him about Ryan. We're seeing that all through his warped and biased perspective, and we all know that Joe is mad as a hatter. And even from Joe's point of view, someone who's doing their damnedest to paint Ryan as a wicked the best he came up with for why Ryan was a horrible father and deserved to get got was because let me check my notes. He lets his mother watch the kid while he goes about his workday and activities like many people do. And he was able to do drugs with no one being none the wiser because he was able to do them while still maintaining his job, home, and going about all his responsibilities. Meanwhile, Marianne finds out the married man volunteering at her library grew up poor in foster care, and that's enough for her to start an affair with him and start bringing her child around him. What business did Marianne have bringing her child around Joe 2 seconds after kissing him for the first time, even if Joe weren't the killer? Think about that. It's funny because Marianne tells Joe that Ryan heard from their daughter that Joe was with them, and Ryan told that to the courts as grounds to get custody. Like Ryan is some wicked manipulating innocent information out of his daughter for nefarious reasons.
Juliet told Ryan that we spent the day together. Now he's threatening to use it against me in the case.
What? Just colleagues?
We're not, and you know that. And besides, it doesn't matter because Ryan will make it look as bad as possible.
Fucking Ryan, I'll destroy him.
But the gag is, I think it's much more likely that Marianne's daughter volunteered the information to her daddy because she was just as uncomfortable with her mom's actions as her father was. And you know how I know that? Because Marianne's daughter expressed not wanting that man, Joe, to come with them. And Marianne did it anyway.
But my car's in the shop.
Let me take you.
Does he have to come?
Ouch, what'd I do to her?
So yeah, I think what was actually much more likely is that Marianne was the reckless parent who did shit neither her daughter or her daughter's father liked, and he had legitimate reasons to want to have his daughter. I say all that to say, I'm just not inclined to see Ryan as the villain just because Joe and his ex who lost custody of the kid says he is, especially when Ryan seemed to be the only with sense that could see Joe's non-invisible ass stalking him.
You know, it's interesting. I've seen you lurking in the back of meetings, pretending like you're invisible. But given the way you're nursing that drink, you don't strike me as someone who has a drinking problem.
Fuck, how much of me did he see?
Joe really had the nerve to be genuinely shocked his blue baseball cap don't render him invisible. And Ryan also beat Joe's ass before Joe got the drop on him because plot armor. And not for nothing, Ryan wasn't the one a married woman who turned out to be a serial killer who murdered his ex before subsequently following him to Paris to kidnap him. So y'all not gonna like it, but we about to pour one out for my run the song, Aaron.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people you can sing it to, just change that into a W. Miss my wigger.
Now let me be very clear here. We are not victim blaming Marianne or denying that our girl is a victim. She most certainly was. Unlike Love or Bronte, who knew exactly what Joe was and chose to go do a bunch of Marianne had no idea Joe was a nut-ass psycho serial killer, and she in no way could have anticipated that shit. While she did knowingly begin an affair with a married man with a newborn baby and grin up in his wife's face knowing she around with her husband with absolutely no true regard, certainly not enough regard to not 2 days later, that still does not in any way make her deserving of the wickedness Joe put her through. Not by any means, but it does reflect badly on her character in a way no one ever acknowledges, but are quick to recognize when it comes to Joe's other partners. Because at the end of the day, if things had gone the way Marianne wanted, if things had been what she thought they were, she was still looking to run off with another woman's husband so they could play family with her daughter while that woman is left to raise her newborn son alone. That's bird bitch shit at the highest level, and I have to hold my fellow Black queen accountable. That's my only gripe with Marianne, that she knew better than to get herself involved with Joe, and doing so was in direct contradiction with every sanctimonious word that had come out of her mouth prior to him commencing the affair, and she directly put her child in jeopardy as a result. But in fairness to Marianne, first, she acknowledges that she knew better.
You ignore that voice because it feels so good to love him and be loved by him.
It's you and him against the world. You know what bad looks like. You know better.
And second, but even more importantly, although I do think it's a moral failing to be consciously having an affair with a married man whose wife and baby you've met, Marianne was literally a vulnerable woman in recovery, and whether she realized it or not, she was being preyed upon by a serial abuser who picked her because he knew she was vulnerable and that he could save her so that she fell in love with him. Joe was taking advantage of her. He picked her specifically because of her trauma and her struggles and how he knew he could exploit them. And we hear that in how he responds to her when she confronts him in season 5 and tells him he's the abuser that he is.
I saved you. I've spent my entire life saving women like you from abusive men.
So at the end of the day, there's only so much one can criticize Marianne for in good faith, especially when the consequence for sleeping with a married man should never be ending up imprisoned in a cage by a serial killer. And unlike Bronte and Love, the moment that Love brought it to Marianne's attention what Joe was, Marianne put bird bitchery behind her and never looked back. While it might seem like a low bar to not knowingly with a serial killer, it's a low bar neither Love nor Bronte were able to meet. So let's give Marianne her 10, shall we? Marianne did actually flee the country to get away from Joe when Love warned her. And speaking of Love warning Marianne about Joe, Marianne didn't even realize her daughter walking in that house was the only thing that stopped Love from sending her to God.
You've been touched by an angel, girl.
Marianne didn't know how lucky she was that Love's motherly instincts wouldn't let her murder her in front of her daughter, because Love has killed bitches for less. Unfortunately for Marianne though, despite literally fleeing to Europe, Joe pulled a page out of Dexter Morgan's book and chased her all the way to Paris. Although, in fairness to my Dexter went to send Lila to hell where she belonged for trying to murder Rita's children, not to rekindle the relationship. Joe's nutty nut ass somehow thought he was gonna get Marianne to get back together with him, knowing he murdered his wife and her ex-husband.
I thought you'd be happy to see me. I thought you loved me.
I did.
Well, I'm right here, and I know a lot has happened.
No. Juliet's in Paris with a friend. She expects me home tomorrow. Am I gonna make it up to my daughter?
Why would you ask me that?
You killed Ryan!
He took your child!
And your wife!
So when Marianne wouldn't willingly consent to being in a relationship with Joe, the stalking serial killer, he kidnaps her, imprisons her in a cage. But at this point, he's actually so deep into his descent into madness that he starts hallucinating and forgets he's even imprisoned her. But while Joe is busy all season with a whodunit murder mystery he's created in his mind, his student Nadia eventually finds Marianne in the cage. And Nadia is able to go through extraordinary lengths to rescue Marianne by tricking Joe into thinking she killed herself in the cage. But let's take a moment to talk about why Nadia ended up going to those extraordinary lengths, shall we? Nadia finds Marianne locked in a cage in the basement, fully coherent and able to inform her that Joe kidnapped her, imprisoned her there, and left. Yet, Nadia doesn't call the police because Marianne convinces her there's no point because he always gets away with it.
Okay, I'm gonna call 999.
You can't call the police.
What? Listen, you are in shock.
No, I'm sane. I'm calm. I'm telling you, do not call them. Killed his wife? He faked his death. That's not even close to everything. He disappears. He comes back again. You can't call them.
But here's my thing. We, as the audience, know enough about Joe's life of crime to know that Joe always gets away with it. And Marianne definitely knows enough to think this Joe is the boogeyman since, like she said, he murked his wife, her ex faked his death, and chased her to Europe. But still, I don't know if that's enough to come to the conclusion that the better approach to calling the police is for this 20-something-year-old college girl to try some dangerous plan where she breaks into Joe the serial killer's home and evil lair repeatedly. Marianne doesn't really know any instance of the police being on to Joe or called on Joe or being presented with any evidence against Joe, and Joe managing to evade them. All she knows is that he killed Love and her ex and that no one knew it was him. But that's entirely different from the police being called to the scene where he has a captive prisoner in a cage and he's teaching a class on campus where he's also living and readily accessible. They actually could have had Joe right where they needed him. But this is a TV show that planned to have another season. So of course, Marianne has to talk Nadia out of the much simpler plan and convince her to do the most. And while Nadia was able to save Marianne, it wasn't without Joe murdering her boyfriend and framing her for his death, as well as a string of insanely wealthy rich British people Joe managed to murder with ease, causing Nadia to spend years in prison for crimes she didn't commit, while Marianne was out living her life unbeknownst to Joe. Saving Marianne cost Nadia her freedom and basically her life because she lost the life she'd been living and hoped to live. Her father even died while she was in prison. But that is not Marianne's fault. There's nothing she could do to help Nadia when billionaire Kate helped Joe put Nadia in prison, covered up all his crimes, and would have absolutely helped crush Marianne had she spoken up. So we don't see Marianne again until Kate turns on Joe, gets Nadia out of prison, and they all team up to try to finish Joe, which is when Joe finds out that Marianne is still alive. And baby, Tati Gabrielle gives one hell of a monologue that I think is one of the first times in the series you truly have someone articulate what a monster Joe truly is. And it's because it's one of the rare instances where there's a survivor.
You fucking kidnapped me. You drugged me. You broke my arm and starved me. You kept me in this fucking cage for weeks. You are not a white knight, Joe. You are a fucking abuser.
And after reading Joe's wicked ass's rights, she still found the energy to try to talk some sense into Bronte's goofy ass.
Men like Joe, they really catch you off guard, don't they? I don't know. Even when you think you have all the facts, even when you think your hard-fought instincts are so good, even though a voice in the back of your mind is whispering, telling you, don't be fooled by his smile. It's all too good to be true. The way he sees you, the way he loves you. Even when you don't love yourself. Don't believe it when he tells you he'll take care of you. Definitely don't assume the best when he says he'll keep you safe.
And while Bronte is a lost cause in my book, our girl Marianne thrived, mothered her child, and became a successful artist selling shit to Kate rich ass. And our girl Marianne is not dead. She is one of the few survivors. But run the song one time for our girl because we miss her.
I really miss my nigga. I really miss my nigga. White people you can sing it to, just change that N to a W. Miss my wigger.